Hello, I'm Jason MINK, and welcome to Comics for Breakfast. Today we're going to go to the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics archives. We're going to pull 3 books from the long boxes. We're going to crack them open, and we're going to check out just what it is that makes those 3 books special. But hey, enough of my balloon juice. It's time for breakfast.
Breakfast.
Doom Patrol is just one of those comics that's always flown beneath my radar. As a kid, I didn't know anyone who read this book, and as a teenager, it just never occurred to me to pick it up. The occasional copy that I would find featured later incarnations of the group and scenarios that I didn't understand or find appealing at all. As far as it goes, I've never really been a big DC reader, so there's just a chance that I might not have given this book the due that it deserves. Is that the case? Oh, yeah, I was completely wrong. Doom Patrol is great. Today we're going to read Doom Patrol number 122, and this is February 1973, although it's a reprint of Doom Patrol 89 from August of 1964. Do you got all that? Good. This was written by Arnold Drake and illustrated by Bruno Premiani. This issue features the classic team made up of Robot Man, Negative Man, Elastigirl, and Doom Patrol team leader, the Chief. Let's get right to it. Biologist Sven Larsson is in town to perform an experiment. Remember in the 1960s when all the big scientists toured? Back then, it was the only way to see them live, unless they were on Ed Sullivan, and then all their theories were drowned out by the screaming teenage girls. Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, it turns out Larson is one of the Chief's former students made good, but his ass is still chapped over his former teacher beating him to the punch when it came to developing the AVM, or Animal Vegetable Mineral Ray. The ray can transmute one form of matter to another, which might be useful for disposing of industrial waste or ending world hunger, but is instead used to turn a man into a giant sponge with the head of a dinosaur. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Larson acts like everything's Jake, inviting the DP to his demonstration, which goes about as well as these things ever do in comics. The scientist falls into a vat of electrically charged amino acids and transforms into a giant paramecium. No! Don't destroy it! That paramecium is what remains of a great man! We've got to try and restore him! Classic. The Doom Patrol attempt to thwart this new menace, but their every effort is countered by Larson's ability to transform into something else. It's nutball stuff in the typical DC fashion, with the heroes using their powers in inventive ways, but their foe's scientific acumen keeps them from gaining the upper hand. In quick succession, Larson becomes a lead giant, a cloud of dandelion seeds, and a swarm of gnats that attack Robot Man's brain, sending him screaming down the street. Larson is eventually driven off, but doesn't go far. One of those helpful televisions that were everywhere back then to provide exposition clues that team in to where their foe is, and they head off to confront him. Forget Quinjets and pogo planes. The Doom Patrol run the 3 blocks to where their foe awaits. That's gotta be one uncomfortable chair ride. With the rest of the team engaging Larson, Negative Man zips back to DPHQ and retrieves the Chief's original AVP device, which, with a little creative thinking, is used to defeat their foe. In the end, Larson is reverted back to his human form, with the ever-optimistic Chief hoping that, quote, mental care, unquote, may help cure his young protege's madness. Yeah, fat chance of that. Now, as I said, this book was written by Arnold Drake, and the writing is what might be described as kooky. It's breezy, fast, and fun, with little real concern about getting the science right. Drake provides Bruno with a lot of interesting and off-the-wall stuff to draw, and the two have a really nice synergy. Premiani not only provides some interesting panel layouts, but the new red and white uniforms that the team would wear going forward. In the end, this is a fun little book. It's nothing too heavy or involved, just the classic Doom Patrol team in a one-and-done adventure meant to provide a few minutes of pleasurable entertainment. I'd say the team can stand down. This one is mission accomplished. Next up, why, it's Jingle Jangle Comics number 31 from February of 1948. That's right, this is one of the oldest comics in my collection. And I'm really excited. We have the opportunity to revisit classic characters like Chauncey Chirp, the pie-faced prince, Hortense, the lovable brat. What's that? You don't remember any of those characters? Yeah, I don't either. Heck, I'm not even sure where this comic book came from. I was just thumbing through the archives and it popped up, and I figured it was worth a read. And it turns out one read is just about all that this book has left in it. It literally disintegrated as I flipped through the pages. It was both a beautiful and a bittersweet experience. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Might have gotten a 0.5. The book is typical of funny animal titles of the period. Multiple stories featuring a selection of generic characters illustrated by whoever was around at the time. That said, the book is a nifty little window into what passed for entertainment in our grandparents' day. Gunty Spry? What the hell? Oh, that's an A. Subject matter includes lost slingshots, asbestos nests, and sinister footwear. Witness a small child's psychotic breakdown. Watch birds emulate their brethren. See an old biddy get bopped on the beak. And now let's take a minute, as famous funnies would like to get to know us a little better. Now, luckily, this page is already filled in, so we get off easy. Turns out I'm a girl, I definitely don't wear sneakers, and my favorite flavor is Orgains. Moving on. Wrapping things up is one of the wildest comics that we've ever looked at on Comics for Breakfast, for sure. Now, amazingly, I've had this book in the archives for a long time as well, but somehow I never got around to looking at it. Until now. Was it worth the wait? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, before we begin, this little gem was written by Jack T. Chick. Now, if you've ever seen one of these lying around a bus station or perhaps your snarky friend's house, then you've seen Chick's work. Chick is an evangelical fundamental Christian, and unsurprisingly, the comic we're about to look at is a platform for his views. Now, we're not here to mock Mr. Chick's faith. We're going to tackle this comic as though it was any other old book, and we're going to leave our personal criticisms or opinions at the front door. Are we cool? All right, let's do this thing. The Crusaders, the Broken Cross. The book features an especially lurid cover, which doesn't necessarily tell you what the story is about, but certainly sets the tone. Young Donna is splitting the home scene because her parents are trying to cram church down her, which in all fairness sounds pretty painful. She gets picked up in a groovy van by a personable early 1970s couple Bobby and Glenn, and it's not long before she meets their equally interesting friends. Donna is given a little something to relax, and before she knows it, she ends up a sacrifice for old Scratch. Shortly thereafter, our heroes Jim and Tim roll into town. Think evangelical versions of Riggs and Murtaugh, only without all the charisma or witty rejoinders. They catch wind of the discovery of a corpse drained of blood, immediately leaping to the conclusion that it was the work of occultists. What, they don't even consider vampires? Because that's really more their M.O., but hey, I'm just a reader here. Rebuffed by the local sheriff, Jim and Tim not only resolve to find Donna's killers, but they buy a sad kid a new puppy in the process. They're good guys, is the idea. They go to speak to the local pastor, Reverend Cooley, who not only rejects the idea that there was a ritual killing, but pretty much everything else associated with being a pastor to boot. This guy is really committed to not being committed. He shows our heroes the door, then creates what's certain to be a fire hazard in his hidden altar. Unfazed, Jim and Tim head to the local library to do a little research on the occult, but surprise! There's not a single book on the shelves. We quickly discover that the librarian is in on it, too. I knew there was something shady about that whole Dewey Decimal System. Seems like this whole town is lousy with Satanists. Now, I don't want to say that this comic peaks too early, but next we get what is easily the best scene in the book, if not all of 1970s evangelical comicdom. After praying for guidance, Jim and Tim see a man on the road up ahead. Who has been sent to guide them? Why, it's this helpful fella. Oh, and he's having a little snack. In spite of his curious dietary choices, the boys load Ian Anderson here into the back seat of their car. Never mind the fact that this fellow is just eating human fingers. He'll be fine sitting behind you. They take him to the nearby police station where the professionals take over. Jim and Tim get a room, and they formulate their next move. The next day, Jim and Tim head down to the local diner where they meet Jody, a helpful Satanist who spends the next 6 pages talking about, well, herself. Bring back the finger-eating guy. Alas, it's not to be. Jody has a change of heart, and the Satanists make their big move, stealing the distributor cap off of our hero's engine. But it's going to take more than car trouble to stop the boys. Jim, or is it Tim? The comic is damnably vague on this point. Busts in on the coven and saves Jody. We get a Scooby-Doo-esque reveal that the coven's leader was the Reverend Cooley all along. What are the odds, huh? With Satan defeated, the Crusaders roll on to their next head-scratching adventure. Whew. Let me tell you, this book blew me away. Oh, sure, it's not without its faults. I'm not really all that interested in the religious component, and they did misspell the word weird twice. In one word balloon. But other than that, the quality of this book is actually pretty high. The artwork is really impressive, and it's complemented by a rich, lush color palette. Actually, it looks better than a lot of Marvel and DC books of the time, which is really saying something. And dig this cover. This scene isn't even in the book, presumably because it's too gruesome. Donna's body has just been found, and both the hippie and the sheriff who discovered her are covered in dirt from her hastily dug grave. It's a powerful image, very disturbing and sensationalistic for the time. The art here is the work of Fred Carter. Carter began illustrating comics for Chick in 1972, although his work went largely uncredited, which is too bad. He's an effective storyteller with a strong grasp of mood and emotion. It's a shame he's not better known. Now, as I said, this book had just been lurking in the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics archives, waiting for the opportunity to be discovered. And what was hiding just behind it? That's right. If you'd like to see more Crusaders, let me know in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, perhaps you'll consider supporting the Old Guys Who Like Old Comics Network. Every little bit helps. I'm Jason MINK. Thank you for joining me this morning. I hope to see you next Sunday.